Hey, welcome back to Visibility Vixen. We're listening to episode 14.
Whoever you are and wherever you are, if you can get to that place where you've cultivated your passion enough, or where you're willing to cultivate your passion to the point of being able to make a true promise to yourself that you'll just keep putting one foot in front of the other regardless, then anything in your way just kind of has to give up.
Welcome to the Visibility Vixen podcast, where we create space to grow our brand with intention and clarity, one episode at a time. Join us as we explore the many aspects of entrepreneurship, start loving the journey instead of the destination, and begin building a legacy that lasts. Here's your host, Michelle Lewis.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's podcast. This is a day that I have been waiting for and just been dying to tell you about. We have a wonderful guest today. Her name is Melissa Pharr. Melissa, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
You guys, this is a really cool story. I first started following Melissa about 6 months ago, and I ate up all of her different challenges and got into her Facebook group, and her Periscopes are just fantastic. So when I started this podcast, my husband asked me what would be like the top 5 guests that you would love to have on the show, and Melissa was right on the top of it. So this is an exciting moment for me. This is, as I would like to call it, coming down from the vision board into your reality. So Melissa, I'm so glad you're here. I know that this is going to be an amazing, amazing podcast. So let's jump into it. Let me give you a little background on her. Melissa has quickly grown her business from zero to an online empire and is on track, listen to this, for her first 7-figure year. That's right. Amazing. She's made it her mission to bring feminine financial freedom and empowerment to other passionate women who have no idea how to begin making the necessary money to go from simply surviving to absolutely thriving in life and online business. Today, Melissa continuously sells out her one-on-one coaching practice and constantly has women lining up on her waitlist to join her 6-figure group program launches. Woo! I could go on, but I want to hear more from you, Melissa. Tell me, fill in the gaps a little bit. How did you get from where you were to where you are now? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Sure. No probs. I think something important that actually I do want to add to that is that there was also a road before I built this business that I was on as well. Because I think so often we can hear people's intros and it's like, ooh, and to be honest, like I pinch myself sometimes that this business has done as well as it has and is continuing to grow, but I definitely meandered quite a bit. And I know for a lot of online entrepreneurs, it's like that for them too. I started out being, how did I even start out? My God, I've changed so many times I can't even remember. But I did personal training for a while, at a club. But it was still very entrepreneurial because you had to get your own clients. And then I moved to New York and started personally training people actually on Skype. And then, I got more into like health coaching and life coaching. And then I actually did sex coaching, believe it or not. Nice. And then I eventually ended up doing business coaching like I'm doing today. So it wasn't it wasn't that overnight success. And I think what I find the more that I keep building and meeting other amazing people, that it seems like it happens in a moment, but there's so much in life that continues to mold you and shape you into the kind of person who can, really create the desires that you've always had. So that was the beginning of my journey. There's a lot of stories there, but I finally came to this point after so much meandering in 2014 where I just, as much as I was afraid I didn't have what it takes, that was a huge fear of mine, I got to this place where it became like a non-negotiable that this was my time. And, got some really good coaching and just, wasn't really doing anything more than continuing to show up day in and day out, no matter whether or not I felt like it was possible to build the online empire that I'm building now. I think that was really the big thing that helped me kind of break through to the other side. because the online world obviously has a lot of stuff going on there and a lot of people going on. So you've got to be compelling and you've got to be confident. You've got to really know what your message is. And I think those are things that I really committed to doing what it took to get the clarity there.
Absolutely. When do you think that aha moment was, when you sat back and you realized you were finally in the right place? You were finally in your life's purpose?
I can't say that it was like a single moment, to be honest. I don't actually have a moment where I was like, oh my God, I'm finally where I'm supposed to be. I was actually reading this really great book by Angela Duckworth called Grit that I've been talking about a lot lately because I love it. And she talks about how a lot of us think that passion is something that you just kind of wake up to, when you find that thing and you discover it, you just kind of instantly know, like, it's a love at first sight thing, that's what passion is. But she says that she doesn't think that's actually true, and I don't either. She talks about how a lot of people who seem so passionate and so talented are really people who have just continued long-term to cultivate an interest until it becomes something they are passionate about.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us think we don't have a passion or that we haven't landed on our dime, not because we don't have an ability to be passionate about something, but because we don't put forth the consistency to let that interest grow into a passion. And I think that the way that I figured out where I wanted to be was just multiple different times while I was doing what I was doing, I started to kind of realize, wow, it's been over 6 months. Now it's been 8 months. Now it's been 12 months. And I just fucking love this. And I
Totally
feel fulfilled. And I feel like I'm seeing the women I work with really, really transform their lives. And I'm just not getting tired of it. Was really, that was like moment after moment of realizing that. And then also, I think for me personally, this is something like helping women create wealth through entrepreneurship so they have more choices and that they can start investing in the world and in their own decisions in a way that really creates good for everyone and really leaves them fulfilled in their lives. I think I just felt like there was no end to what I could learn. And I love business and I love online marketing. And so I would learn one thing and there was something more to learn. And this is the industry and the area that I cannot possibly get sick of it.
Well, you have such a gift for it. And I have had so many days where I wake up and you're right. There are those days where it feels like the passion is gone and you're going, okay, where am I? I'm feeling lost. I'm feeling a little bit frustrated with where I'm at right now. And that's when I turn on my podcast or I turn on my Periscope and I listen to people like you or like Lexi or like Gina DeVee or whoever to adjust that mindset. It's so easy to fall into a defeating mindset. And I think that's one of your huge gifts is lifting women out of that mentality.
Thank you.
Yeah. So why don't you talk to me a little bit about, you've coached a lot of women. What do you see as one or two of the biggest, for lack of a better term, strongholds that they deal with and have to really let go of?
Well, I think one of the biggest ones you just mentioned was like in terms of the mindset, it's really letting go of that whole fear of, is this possible? I was someone who really, what I call it is like mentally pushing pause on yourself. And, just really questioned whether or not I could have what I wanted, and just got into fear and got into doubt a lot of the time. I think this is one of the biggest things because no matter how confident somebody is or isn't, and obviously it's always better if they really are just in it to win it. In fact, they have to be. But no matter how you feel, it's like you're still going to have to go through times that feel like an uphill battle. You very well could, and you're going to have to develop a certain kind of mindset where you just, regardless, you keep going. So I think that's something that I realized in my journey because I had really, really hard days. And I just remember ultimately, even if I was crying, which I was, I would sit there and be like, the only thing I know to be true right now, because there's a lot of things I don't know up from down. I feel so overwhelmed. I feel so fearful about stuff. And I'm not exaggerating, by the way, when I say that I've suffered from crippling anxiety for probably like the first 26 years of my life. Absolutely crippling. like almost losing jobs, leaving college, all kinds of stuff. And I think, you know, being an entrepreneur, I think this actually is what healed me from feeling like that. I really don't go into that place anymore, ever. And I had to know that the only thing that was true in those moments of feeling just totally off was that I would never stop. And whoever you are and wherever you are, if you can get to that place where you've cultivated your passion enough, or where you're willing to cultivate your passion to the point of being able to make a true promise to yourself that you'll just keep putting one foot in front of the other regardless, then anything in your way just kind of has to give up after a certain point in time. Because it, no matter what it is just kind of like, oh, I don't want to come up against her because I'm just going to lose.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the biggest things, like really being able to become that person to step into that doesn't happen without challenges and without risks. And so if you're not willing to get out of your comfort zone and to be challenged and to be taking risks, then it's really hard to be molded into that kind of person. I would say it's actually impossible to be molded into that person. And the cool thing, though, is that I'm not even somebody who's super hardcore. Like, I actually have worked about 3 hours today, and I continue to make more money in far less time. I only take clients I absolutely adore. I love my group programs. I take vacation more than I ever have in my whole life. I have the best relationship with a partner I've ever had. It will always be amazing. So life gets better if you're willing to step into it. And I'm not about overworking. That's not what it's about when you say getting molded into somebody who is mentally unbreakable. It's just about continuing to make decisions and make commitments, not just once at the beginning of a program, but every single day because you just care that much. So that's a long way of saying this whole mindset piece is actually fun, and it feels good to allow yourself to really reach for your potential. It feels a lot better than just staying where you are because you're afraid it might not work out. So that's, I think, the biggest piece that comes to mind. I don't know if you want me to go into another piece because that might be enough, but
well, I'm really happy that you dug into the realness of it. I'm someone that suffered from chronic migraines for about 18 years, and it was the hardest thing in my life to get into those pain patterns and still feel like I was worthwhile of accomplishing something on this earth. Because when you can't physically move, you just feel like nothing. And at the very end of the day, what I would have to just sit there and realize deep, deep, deep in my heart, and not so much my mind, is what is the truth, like you said. And for mine, it was, I don't want to give up. So no matter what happens, I refuse to give up. And people that are listening to this podcast, no matter where you're at, no matter how you are struggling, if you're trying to balance a full-time job and trying to step out online, just find that truth within yourself. If it's not giving up, if it's never stop fighting, whatever it is, and just keep going. Like Mel said, it's not like, you know, in the very beginning, she could work 3 hours a day and be done. Maybe if, you know, she's a genius, she could. At least for me, you build it and then you get there. But it is those daily decisions of how you're working in your business, how you're building your team, and how you're taking care of yourself that gives you that ability to step back. And I think that that's a beautiful point that you brought up. So thank you for talking about that.
Yeah. And, you know, Michelle, I think something else that's a big part of this too is that I think so many of us are afraid to live life fully in that way, or to go for it fully in that way, because we have this idea, at least I did, that it's going to be scary and harder than what we're already doing. And this is what's so wonderfully true about it, is that it's kind of the complete opposite. As soon as you know that you're not going to give up, this is when you get to start allowing yourself to have fun doing what you've been excited to do the whole time. You know, like the second that you are letting yourself get into it, has nothing to do with how many hours you work per se, right? That's just like one aspect of it. But the people who are in love with their lives and what they're doing aren't clocking the hours because their jobs don't feel like they need to be clocking hours. I pulled 16-hour days and I pulled 3-hour days. The fact is, I love what I'm doing every time, and nothing will ever stop me. And because I'm in that energy, it just gets to be fun. It gets to be a game. Are there times that feel hard? Absolutely. I already told you I spent tons of time like crying to my mom because I did. And some days I still call her up and do that, but that's just what life is.
You're going to have that no matter what career you're in.
It's so true. So I think it's such a wonderful, pleasant surprise to know that like living full out and doing business full out, or just whatever your passions are, is the very thing that welcomes you to like really have a great time and feel more fulfilled and have more freedom, because you're not living your life on somebody else's terms anymore.
I think that that's so true. Such a gem of wisdom. Let's talk about, what is your biggest focus right now?
My biggest focus right now, I actually have two. I have a rule that I never have more than 2 goals at one time, because I'm all about doing 1 or 2 things really, really freaking well before I try to do more than that. My whole goal of 2016 was mastering group program launches. And if that started going really well, then I was allowed to start spending a little bit of time on creating passive income in my business. So those are the single 2 focuses in terms of like my business right now that are really my big business goals. And I have indeed launched my signature group program 3 times now, and it's been amazing. And so I started to bring in passive income as well, and that's also taken off. So it's kind of interesting. The less I focus on, the faster everything goes, and the more it looks like I'm doing a bunch of things, but actually every action I take goes into just those 2 things, and that's it. So that's really, really my focus in terms of like business wise. And then I think another big thing in 2016, especially with everything that's going on in the world right now, I've really realized how when you start creating abundance, be it financial or otherwise, and you really are taken care of and not in a survival mentality, that you are opened up to focus on self-actualization and your ability to make an impact that is far bigger than yourself, which may sound cliche and cheesy, but the fact is I was really ashamed to admit when I first started my business that I couldn't really think as fully about helping other people, because the fact is I was worried about paying my bills, and I was worried about when I was going to get another client. And I wish that people would talk about this more, because the reality was, it's like, you know, there's so many women afraid to make sales or to make money at what they love doing. And the fact is, like, I'm so pro wealth because I think money is a tool that can be used to make such a positive impact in the world. That doesn't mean everybody chooses to use it that way, but I'm really big on that. So I think with everything that's going on in the world, I've really focused in on what my desires are this year. Like, as I've had more abundance in my life financially, more resources, more team members, and more time in my life to think about what really matters to me instead of scrounging by like I was in the beginning of my business. Makes complete sense. It's really opened me up to the impact that I can make with the relationship between women and money, and therefore the relationship between, or just the relationship of all humans being in a better place. And I think specifically lately, I really want my mission with wealth and women to show how instead of being divided or being in fear, we can really invest our resources in things that bring all different kinds of people together. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I know that with the current climate, that's becoming a front and center thing, tying my mission of wealth and peace, both of those things that people don't always think go together, back in a way so that I can truly be a leader in a way I can be proud of, and bring wealth and money into a light that I think it isn't shown in a lot of the time, but it needs to be.
Well, I'm glad that you talked about that. I actually the other day was talking to Adrienne Dorson, and she founded something called Good Businesses Do Good. And it's a global movement to amplify generosity amongst entrepreneurs. And I can send you her info. But we talked about this concept and how she was saying, you know, I wish that people would get this earlier on, and how much giving not only helps us raise our frequency and, come from a grateful place, but it really attracts more and more abundance to us so we can keep continuing doing that good. And I think that's fantastic and amazing. Really amazing.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. It's good stuff.
Yeah, it is.
and good just to be, I think for all of us, it's like, as you start to build a community of people, you start to realize how important it is to be conscious of who you're being and what you're teaching. Mm-hmm. And that as the community grows, so does the responsibility. And it's a wonderful thing. Mm-hmm. And just for us to continue to be conscious of human beings, of who we're choosing to be and the message that we're choosing to send, I just think is a really important part. And, I'm like such a speck of dust in this world at this point. So it's not like I have this incredibly huge reach even, but I think that for all of us and for all of those who are aspiring entrepreneurs or on their journey, you just never know how many people are watching. And even if it's just a few, that impact sometimes is a life-changing thing. It often is. Yeah. So I just take that really seriously. And, I like to have a lot of fun at the same time.
Absolutely. Your dance parties are legendary. Well, and it's true that some people look at me and go, oh my gosh, I wish I was there. Some people look at you and go, wow, that's the goal. I can't wait to be there. And where you're at, you're going to be looking ahead and going, ooh, I can't wait to be here. We're always in that process of evolving. And I think that's the beauty of the life that we've been given on this earth.
Ditto.
So let's talk about, what is your favorite daily habit?
My favorite daily habit?
Mm-hmm. What's something you do every day?
Well, something I do every day before I'm allowed to actually work on my business. This is like a Monday through Friday type of thing. Mm-hmm. I actually I'm not one for rules, and I don't actually like the word discipline either. Mm-hmm. But if I had to use them, I would use them in this way. I'm not allowed to work on my business until I've done something for my body and something for my mind every morning. Mm-hmm. So that might be usually like I take long walks, like hour-long walks. I live like right on the water looking at Manhattan in Queens.
Wow.
And I'll like take walks for like an hour just to kind of give space to myself. Or I'll do like a mindset practice that I've just been doing religiously as well to get myself in that place of, just seeing opportunities, feeling creative, being in a state of belief about what I'm wanting to create in my life and in my business. Mm-hmm. So I do that. And then, maybe it's a walk or a workout or something. I did used to be a personal trainer, so I'm super into that too. But mm-hmm. I feel like those are the two things I do every day before I begin, because I think it's just so important to start my day on my own terms, because I know there will be a lot of emails. I know there'll be a lot of stuff going on online. I know there will be, tasks that my team members are giving me and reminding me of. But I always have to start out with my vision, so that not only am I the person running my business and running my life, but those things aren't running me. So that's stuff that I do every day, and it's really fun. And then, I throw in a dance break, or maybe my mom and I will shoot the shit on the phone in the morning. We've been doing that a lot the last couple of weeks because she's pretty hilarious. Mm-hmm. So, it changes, but those are like the things I try to keep consistent. And, there are days where I'm like, I do get snagged by email sometimes, but every time that happens, I'm always like, oh, Mel, why did you do that? You know better.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So true. So we're going to be talking about your upcoming challenge in a minute, but I want to talk about the one that you are currently doing that I'm a part of, because I really have loved how you've dove in to help us raise our vibration. And I'd love to talk about kind of more of, I can't remember which day you talked about this now thinking of it, but you were talking about handling fear. Would you mind giving us just a glimpse into something that we can all start doing to empower ourselves to handle fear better?
Yeah, I think this is this day when I talked about turning fear into fuel, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I hope I can remember what I talked about. I kind of come up with that stuff every morning, but I'm sure I can rip on it. Yeah. I think I mean, clearly, as you can see when you look around, fear can be a really strong force for people, right? And the thing about fear is that it takes you out of your right mind.
Yeah.
It's a scary thing, right? Like fear is like this trance state that puts you in a mind, and actually your amygdala is what's turned on when you're feeling really fearful. It's like your fight or flight response.
Yeah.
And so what's really interesting about being in fear is that it's not a place where you make your most intelligent, insightful decisions. It's a place where you literally are wearing like the doubt goggles and thinking worst case scenario. But even more important to know is that you are physically and chemically unable to feel creative or insightful or inspired when you're in a place of fear. And all opportunities and solutions fall into those three categories. And so if you're in fear, you just can't see those. So for me, what I really like to do is not push away my fear, because I think that's the first thing, right? Is like fear comes up, we just don't want to feel that way. But it's just like this big wash of a lot of bullshit that's going on in our head. And the funny thing about fear is that as soon as you stare it in the face, it's actually quite cowardly. So dealing with years upon years of crippling anxiety, as I mentioned before, I realized that if I would just feel like, okay, I'm feeling panicky, bring it on. Like, let's just see what's here, because whatever you resist persists, right? So I got to learn through my anxiety that when I tried not to feel it, it grew into something really, really terrifying. But if I sat there and just kind of been like, okay, let's just reflect on this for a second, like what's really happening here, those were the times where I would kind of be like, oh, wow, I would almost disarm it. So I would really feel my fear. That's like the first thing I would do, is just sit there and kind of take a moment and be like, okay, like, let's take a look at this. Is this really this scary? And I would even ask myself a couple of questions. I'd ask myself, is this likely? And if it did happen, then what? So I would actually let myself go there. And I do this with clients too, where they come in with some fear that I think is highly unlikely and just kind of keeping them stuck. And I'm like, okay, let's play it through. What if that happened? What would you do then?
Yeah.
And it's like this moment. What's that?
I said putting a bottom to it.
Yeah. And just saying like, hey, if that happened, what would you do? And I think a lot of times the second that you say, if that happened, what would you do? Not that I like to encourage imagining and like dwelling on stuff, but that's not the purpose of this. The purpose is to bring yourself into a place of acceptance that you are fearful, and to recognize it, acknowledge it. And then what comes over me in that instance is the second that I accept, ooh, this could be a reality, is the second that my mind then starts to search for a solution.
Yeah.
And what I started to notice is that the second that I would just accept that there was a fear present is the second that I would also realize I was the kind of person who would then do whatever I needed to do to figure it out.
Yeah.
So that started to release it a little bit. And then I also would say, okay, like, so why is this fear coming up? What can I learn from this moment of feeling this? And how is this fear actually molding me into the woman who can handle the desire that I want, that if I hadn't gone through this, I wouldn't be equipped to handle. And that's when I become conscious of that, because there are a lot of times I remember early in my business where I'd be like, oh my God, what if a client wants a refund? Well, you know, I've worked with hundreds upon hundreds of women. So I've had 2 or 3 very small rate of people who have. And when that kind of comes up, it's actually been like, oh, okay, let's just deal with this and, you know, make sure that I can always walk away being really proud of myself, and they'll move through it. And now it's really funny because I look back at things where I'm like, oh gosh, when I get to that stage, it's going to be really scary. But because of working through my fears and not pushing them away, I'm always equipped to deal with whatever comes. And so things may feel a little scary, but I've turned into the person who can keep calm under that, because I know that I'll always find a solution. I know I can self-soothe, and I know that I'm not running away from any feelings that I just need to sift through.
I love that you said that. Is how is this molding me into a woman who can handle this and overcome it? That's so powerful, and something that I'm at least taking away from this time together to go, wow, that's something I really need to affirm for myself whenever those doubt or anxiety or fears come up. That's so powerful, actually using that fear or that doubt as a tool to grow. Amazing.
Yeah. And I believe that's why it's there. It's like we have to have doubt. We have to have fear if we want to become those people a lot of the time. I mean, I even look back, if I, had the clients I have now in my group and my one-on-one, if I was planning the event that I'm planning now and the launch I'm planning in September and January, and I was who I was when I started this business, I can tell you right now, I would crack under pressure.
There'd be a little peeing in the pants. Absolutely.
It would never, I wouldn't know what to do to handle that or to support the people that I'm supporting now. But the journey that I went on just kept, I kept allowing myself to grow into that person who now it's like, gosh, it's easier to support what I'm supporting now in my business than it was to get my first paying client.
How cool is that?
It's pretty fucking cool.
That's freaking amazing. So cool. Okay, so let's dive into just a little bit before we wrap up. A lot of ladypreneurs are listening to this and they're excited, but they're also feeling maybe a little discouraged and they're feeling maybe a little bit invisible. So what's the number one piece of encouragement that you would like to give a ladypreneur listening right now who's feeling that way?
A lot of times I'll say things like, just be consistent, keep going. And that's totally true. It's the consistency piece, and just a lot of what, you and I have talked about already is really the biggest piece. But, something else is coming to me today. I'm not sure why, but I think it's about environment. And I talked about this in the vibration lifters you talked about this week. For a seed to grow, it's got to be planted in like a good environment, right? It can fall on a stone or it can fall in like fertile ground. Yes. And I've been on this journey for a while. Like I said in the beginning, it wasn't an overnight thing. It was like, this is my 7th year of being an entrepreneur. And if I would have started doing things the way I'm doing them now, I'm sure it would have grown a lot faster. But I love my journey the way that it was. I trust it the way that it was. But I look back and I know there were certain times where there were, actual physical environments, or there were relationships or communities where, they were either more or less conducive to me really allowing myself to turn into the woman that I want to be. And I say this because I see a lot of us, and I remember myself at a certain point in time really just working my butt off to kind of make this stuff happen. And yet I just was in an environment at that time that was totally contradictory. And it was really tricky for me to just stay in that vibe and keep being that person. Yeah. And I think this is another piece of just success in general, success meaning you feeling fulfilled and happy. That's what I define that as. But I think there's another piece of us really being able to be fulfilled and happy people where we have to be good with boundaries, saying no to some things, saying yes to others, and being willing to refuse to pollute our environment. And that could mean a lot of different things to anyone listening. You know what it is for you if you're willing to look at it. But there are a lot of things I'm not great at, but boundaries is one of my zones of genius. Saying no is one of my zones of genius. And I do believe that no can be the loving answer, and that walking away from anything that doesn't believe and support you, and that won't let you believe and support it back, is best for all. And I think it's one of the things that a lot of women online entrepreneurs struggle with.
I totally agree.
Yeah. So being able to say yes to yourself in a really big way is not just about, I'll do whatever it takes, I'll be a workhorse. It's not really about those things all the time. It's also about taking care of yourself and your environment. And it's that thing that it's like, it's the last thing to go sometimes, or it never goes and you just get stuck for a really long time. So that's like my hard ass side coming out, because I think that every human being deserves to be in an environment where they're like a seed that's in fertile soil. And whatever you've got to do to get yourself there just enough to keep putting one step in front of the other, go ahead and do that. And that looks different for different people. Whatever situation you're in, it might mean that you just take like 30 minutes a day to give yourself some space and some time to get into a creative place. Maybe it's more dramatic than that. Who knows? But I think being able to say yes to yourself is not a selfish thing. It's about opening up so that you actually have something to give.
And making your life easier. It's a heck of a lot harder to be that workhorse in a toxic environment than it is to surround yourself with love and happiness and joy. Even if it's just you, you can create that for yourself, and then the work becomes so much easier and it's no longer work. So
amen, sister.
Beautiful. So let us talk about this amazing gift that you're giving us. I am so excited about this. We're going to be talking about the freebie of your upcoming challenge called Book Your First Paying Clients. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I have a challenge coming up, and it is called Book Your First Paying Clients. It's a 5-day challenge, and you know Michelle already. I love doing challenges.
Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you do. I eat them up.
It's so fun. Well, like live streaming is, I mean, how amazing is live streaming, right? The fact that you can just get on and reach people everywhere.
Yes.
It's insane. It's,
Fantastic.
I mean, the gifts we have. I'm in such gratitude for the way that we can connect with each other as humans. It's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. And you know, I always use this. I've been using this analogy a lot lately. It's like when you want to become an online entrepreneur and you go out there and you hear crickets for the first time, join the club. Mm-hmm. You know, like that's okay. Because you got to think about the fact that when you go online, it's basically like you're heading to a party with 3 billion people at it. And you're expecting that the first time you say, hey, this is who I am, it's what I'm all about, that everybody at that party is going to come running to you and saying, I got to work with you, right? Mm-hmm. And that's not always the way it is. So the reason I bring this up is because I think as an online entrepreneur, what I just struggled with, and what I wanted more than anything, was how to book those first paying clients. I just had to know that I had something of value and somebody was going to pay for it. And if one person gave me that proof, I would be fine. But I just was like dying to have that happen. And in the online world, it's, you know, so stimulating and there's so many things and everybody's telling you, do this, do that, pay attention to that, don't pay attention to this. And actually, they're not really saying don't pay attention to this. They're more saying like, this is what you need. But like there's a million things going on all at once. So I think it's easy for online entrepreneurs to get overwhelmed and to not know really how can you distill booking your first paying clients into the simplest possible step-by-step process. And that's what I have so many of the women I work with coming to me for help with. So I've been focusing in on that a lot because I love keeping things simple. I love doing things step by step. I like teaching the hard stuff so that anybody can understand it, because we have amazing tools to be making money online and making a great impact with clients. But you do need like a simplified roadmap so that you don't get stuck in the bright, shiny object syndrome place.
So true.
Yeah. So this 5-day challenge is like the 5 exact places to focus your attention to get those clients. And that's what I'm going to be walking everybody through every single day. So I'm like, hey, let go of it all, focus right here so that you know what to do and when to do it to get your first clients. Awesome. I want to keep it that simple.
Awesome. Well, guys, this challenge actually starts today. So get your buns over to melissapharr.com/book your first paying clients. I'm going to put all of these links that we've been talking about in the show notes, but I cannot go on about her challenges enough. They're so exciting, so great. You can either join her Facebook group, which is called the Feminine Affluent Entrepreneur, which I will put below, or you can follow her on Periscope. Are you Melissa Pharr on Periscope, or are you Pharr Melissa?
Pharr Melissa.
Okay, Pharr Melissa. And you can just join in. What I love about Mel is that the gifts that she shines through on her live streams are kindness and generosity. So you feel like you are talking to your coach. So hop on there, take advantage of this offer right now. And before we go, I'm going to tell you a quick funny story. When I first booked you on this podcast, I texted my husband in like all caps because I was so excited. And he came home that day and he's like, I want to record a video for her to try to explain to her that, you know, you used to work in television. You were raised in films. You were around people like John Travolta and Nicolas Cage. And I have never seen you as excited to like meet and talk to somebody as Melissa Pharr. So who is this woman? It was so funny. So I so appreciate you taking the time today to touch these women and to make a raving fan's heart happy and to offer us this amazing challenge. This is so exciting.
Oh my gosh, you're so welcome. And you just made my heart explode. Although I have to let everybody know, I mean, like, no one knows who I am, and I'm actually not anywhere close to being any of those people. So it is a pretty hilarious story, but I'm so glad to be here. And I hope that, whatever nuggets anyone can take away, that you really use them to just go after what you desire in your business. And I'm just really honored to be here, and I really thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited. I wish you a wonderful, wonderful weekend with your hubby-do and any family that you're visiting. And everyone listening, feel free to rewind this bad boy. Really let this podcast sink in. These are words of wisdom. And stay tuned, because we're going to have a great episode coming up next week.
Thanks for listening in today to the Visibility Vixen podcast. Subscribe now and share with a fellow Vixen who wants to start building their visibility. For more fire in your life and brand, visit visibilityvixen.com.